Hey YouTube, it's time for a quick update on the Mossberg 520 gauge project. If you guys have been watching, we got the Blackhawk stock fitted. This stock set is for a 12 gauge shotgun. One thing I noticed when I was looking around, you know, like I do with every project when I start, just go around the net, see if anyone's done it, see what's out there, what kind of information. The one thing I ran into a lot is the foreend. There's really no good answers out there about making this foreend work on a 20 gauge. You know, really there was virtually no information to be had. I found a couple alternatives out there. You know, you could buy one from Mossberg specifically for the 20 gauge. I did end up getting this Blackhawk 12 gauge foreend to fit. That's really what this video is going to be about. This is going to be pretty in-depth. I'm not going to show you guys the work getting done. I did it yesterday and it's just too long and drawn out, but I'll explain exactly what I did. I'll remove everything and show you how to make this work for your gun. So I guess at the end of the day, you know, it absolutely can be done. You can make it work. Is it easy? Not so much. But you know, with the lack of aftermarket support for these 20 gauges, you know, you really don't have much choice. It's either go with the plain Jane one that you can get from Mossberg or try and make something fit. I chose to make something fit, and I'll show you guys how I did it. Thanks. So first things first here, we'll break down the gun so I can get everything off and show you what's going on. With pretty much any Mossberg 500, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, whatever, the breakdown and assembly is pretty much the same. The first thing you want to do is open your action up, which the action is open, the bolts to the rear. Then you want to remove this takedown knob from your magazine tube. And once you have that loose, you can go ahead and remove the barrel by twisting it a little to the right, or the opening of the receiver, and pulling it straight out. So again, we have the takedown knob completely out of the magazine tube. So you just grab the barrel, give it a little pull, and it'll come right out. So now that we have the barrel off, you can really get a view of what we had to do inside of this foregrip to make it work. Now we still have the action to the rear, so we'll move that forward a little bit so you can get a good look. All this material in here had to be removed and shaved out to get the action bars and the action tube to actually slide onto the magazine tube. But we're going to pull all this apart so you can get a really good look at it. So next we're going to remove the rear, the buttstock assembly. That's pretty simple. Just have one retaining screw right here in the bottom of the stock. Okay, at this point we're just working with the action and the magazine tube. So we're going to go ahead and push out the cross pin that's holding in the trigger group into the receiver. Remove your trigger group. Now that's something that'll normally happen, is the shell stop. The one shell stop will just plop out when you remove the trigger group. The other one will come out as you move the bolt back. So then you're just basically working with your foregrip, your action bars, and your slide tube. Alright, at this point you can see the slide tube retaining nut. If you're not doing this for the first time, if you've removed that nut and put it on before and it's not too tight, you can use a pair of needle nose and insert them into the grooves on that nut. If it's from the factory or the first time you've done it, I do not suggest this method. You will not be able to get it out, and you're likely to damage that slide tube nut beyond repair. So we'll get that removed. And we'll go ahead and pull a slide tube out of the foregrip. As you can see, it's a relatively tight fit. So now the slide tube is where life gets a little bit interesting when working on the 20 gauge versus the 12. The first thing you have to deal with is just a little bit of diameter. As you're going into the foregrip, the 20 gauge diameter is a little bit smaller ID than the 12 gauge. Also, there's a length issue. This gun was purchased as a Bantam or a youth model. So this slide tube is actually about 4.75 inches. On the 12 gauges, if you look overall, you know, you really need significantly more than that. The 12 gauge 500s have a couple different slide tubes on them. One is 6 3/4, one is 7 7/8, I believe. Those would predominantly be no problem to fit into there. So really we had to fight two issues. One, having a very short slide tube going into this gusseted area, we had to make a relief cut to allow our slide tube and our action bars to slide far enough into the foregrip to use the existing retainer and the existing molding that they have inside the foregrip. So that took a lot of relief. You know, for kicks, if anyone tries to do this, it behooves you to go ahead and measure your slide tube and take a real good look at the stock foregrip before you go any further, because once really you get into modifying your new one, you're at the point of no return. So here we're looking at the stock 20 gauge youth model foregrip and the Black Hawk that we want to put on. This gives you a good opportunity to look and see what I'm talking about. If you see this ridge right here, that's where this fortified section of your slide tube will actually impact and rest. So this area right here is where your slide tube will actually fit in and retain onto your magazine tube. So as you can plainly see, all this right here has been seriously relieved from the factory. One thing you might also see is this, I would tend to bet that this is almost an identical foregrip for a 12 gauge, but it's just been machined down to handle the smaller youth model. So now, just to take a minute to look at the Black Hawk foregrip. Hopefully you can get a good view here. What you can see here is where we have ridges and indents, as well as machine parts to hold the action bar for a 12 gauge, the action bars I should say. All that had to go for this to work on the 20 gauge. So as you can see, we made some pretty deep cuts inside, around, through all the retention pieces for that 12 gauge. Basically just bored all that out. I know this does not look good right now. Really, I just wanted to get this video up. What I'm gonna do is get some liquid DevCon, and I'm gonna pour it in here, smooth all that out, and just sand it smooth and pretty. You know, even though you don't really see that, I just don't want to see it all banged up. You know, I want it to be nice and look good. Alright, well hopefully everyone can see. Basically, what you have to do is cut out a good 1/4 inch of plastic all the way around and into this stock, probably around 4 inches or so. Not very hard, just a little tedious, and you have to be careful. You can start melting the material and then things will get soft on you and you can deform it. And plus, man, it just goes all over the place. I've made a pretty big mess in the shop last night doing this. But it works. You also need to try and leave yourself, you know, a pretty flat surface right there. So as you push the slide tube in, you have a good flat mating surface for that, and that'll hold this in tight. So it won't jiggle around and flop around all over the place. That leads us to the next issue that we're having to deal with. Obviously, I don't really feel like changing the slide tube. You had to buy that as an assembly from Numrich or Mossberg. I'd have to get new action bars. So to make this work, I still have probably about a 1/16 of clearance around this cylinder as the slide tube goes in and we lock in our retainer. So what I want to do there is actually get some liquid DevCon. A lot of you guys might be familiar with DevCon from doing, you know, pillar bedding or stock bedding. That's a putty. This material that I'm going to use is actually a liquid. So what I'm going to do is fit an O-ring in here, place the tube in, and actually pour that liquid in and change the diameter of this this hole. That'll work. I've done it before on other things. You know, it's somewhat of a hassle, but if you're going to do something like this, you might as well do it right. I think it's going to look good, so we might as well have it installed properly. I don't want it wobbling all over and making a big mess. So for the most part, guys, that's it. I'll throw the gun back together and just give you a little function test of how it looks before we bed it. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it works pretty good. Thanks. Alright everybody, there you have it. Mossberg 500 20 gauge with 12 gauge furniture on it. Everything fits, does what it's supposed to do. Maybe we'll give you guys a quick action wrecking shot, but it can be done. It's a pain in the butt, but it can be done.